All right, team. Take a little walk before coaching the after-school groups, and going to have Anthony Schlegel on live. Anthony Schlegel is going to be one of the speakers at Underground Strength Con, and looking forward to hearing about his philosophy on how he takes his philosophy towards training, sports, and approaches it and applies it to life and business. My boy Mark Smelly Bell in the house. And so I've had Schlegel on the podcast before. He created a product called The Difference. Mark Smelly Bell is the champ. Me and Mark Smelly Bell have like every other month text chat, and it always starts like this. This guy wants to be somebody. And the story behind that is, see, I remember these stories because they mean something to me. When Smelly and his brothers were entering powerlifting meets in their teenagers, or as Smelly says, he goes, powerlifting. He's got power behind it. He said the announcer always shouted every time somebody approached the platform, say, this guy wants to be somebody. And I thought to myself, man, throw that on a t-shirt. That would be amazing. And so, Big House Power talking smack out of the gate, as expected. Yeah, new haircut. I should have faded it up higher, but my son gets mad at me because he says I don't go to a real barber. I don't want to mention the name of the place I go to. I don't want to get sued by them. It's like a big franchise. And I hate to admit it, I feel like I don't have the time to sit down and wait for 15 minutes, then get a 45-minute haircut. Like, I got to get in and get it going. Hope all is good, Adrian. Thanks for coming here. Good to get fresh air. I love fresh air. I always say, if I had a gym in the warmer areas, I don't think I would have a gym with walls. Maybe I would put some sort of a pole barn. See you, Smelly. I'll be bald soon enough. I don't think so, man. I'm doing all right. Although I think 20 years of buzzing my head could have busted up the hair a little bit. But anyway, back to it. Anthony Schlegel will be coming on live soon. And I did a podcast with him some years ago. I had come across some of his videos. I love the passion. I love the fire. I love the intensity. And I think he created a pretty damn cool product. Something that is sports skill or application of sports skill and used in the weight room. And he's going to be speaking at Underground Strength Con. Philosophy on training, business, and life. He always says attack and dominate. And I think to myself, you can't go wrong with that kind of attitude. A lot of people wait. Right? They wait for the sun and the moon to align. They wait for things that just cause you to miss out on opportunity. My goodness. Big House Power talking smack. By the way, House, it has been way too long since you've been on the Strong Life podcast. I think he fears it. He fears that I ask good questions, not the same old bland questions people ask. House, I need to I want to go down to your place in North Carolina before you move. I don't know, you're going to be in Italy soon, and rent out the Airbnb upstairs and get my learn on from you. And by the way, people can do that. They can reach out to Big House, get the training, and Airbnb right above his home gym, which I did an amazing video tour of, which we posted up on my YouTube. Pretty damn cool. So I'm need to get the time to go down. So it's good, man. Fresh air out here. Baseball fields. You could literally smell football in the air. I'd say in about a month, you begin to smell wrestling in the air. It's interesting how the weather, the seasons change. And if you've been an athlete, you can literally smell that sport in the air. Old school gyms to train at. I feel like down south, maybe some places in New York, it depends where you are. Ohio, there are some old school gyms that are surviving. I don't know how they do it. Sometimes I wonder if it's possible. Would I even do it? And, I'm creeping up on age 50, and I sometimes say to myself, will I? What's the next iteration of the underground? Will it even be the underground strength gym? Or am I turning it into tough gym, like from Rocky? I don't think this thing's going to stay here, which I always would love to do. I was thinking about that yesterday, how I was watching Rocky 3. I was on a podcast. I was watching Rocky 3 when Rocky had to go back to tough gym. He's with Apollo. And I was like, man, I'm going to open a gym and I'm going to call it Tough Gym. But somehow, some way, everything went underground strength. And I got to be honest with you, I like to be transparent and tell the truth. Sometimes I wonder, is that name too long? Did that name scare people away? And that's always a big concern. And then, is it even underground anymore? Not under space ground. That means you're underneath the ground. Underground meaning things that are not following the rules. And as soon as I saw on Biggest Loser on TV a grandma flipping a tire, I said, that's it. This shit's over. And I remember that day clear as day. I had to pause that for a second so Anthony Schlegel could hop on. We're going to do a quick one, about 20, 25 minutes, talking life, training, and business. Maybe a little hunting. Schlegel is and has some redneck in the blood. So it's going to be a great one. Let's give him a second here to jump on board. All right, Big House. Great seeing you, my friend. Great seeing a lot of you guys here. Now, for those of you who don't know Anthony Schlegel, he was a strength coach at Ohio State. He played football at Ohio State. And then he was also the strength coach, I believe it was Jacksonville Jaguars. Here's Schlegel. Schlegel, please request to enter the chat. Garrett Camille, old school gym, new generation of lifters. Schlegel, what you got to do is request to go live. Request to join, which I think you can. I don't know if your camera looks the same as mine on Instagram, but there's a camera with a little plus sign on the bottom. Or let's see if I could invite. There we go. Gary owns Fitness City Gym. It's literally a house. And there's video footage of me training there. Looks like I am in a prison yard training at his gym. A couple of years ago, I would train there all the time. There we go. Yes, Schlegel.
Hey, so this is how this. I've never done this before. I didn't even know this was a thing.
Really?
No,
I thought you've done this before.
no, absolutely not. Like, guys, listen to me. I'm the least tech guy on the planet, so I have no clue. I'm gonna actually close out this button over here on this guy, so we can get off that one. And yeah, I've never done this. I mean, I'm used to doing. I'll do podcasts with Bob. I'll do Morning Juice in Columbus, Ohio. But like this whole IG live thing is new to me.
Yeah, makes it easy for us. So where are you right now? Are you in Ohio?
No, I'm in Florida. We just had that hurricane pass through, so we didn't have power till about 11 o'clock. And me and Bob were doing our podcast, and I was like, dude, I can't get on. I couldn't even call him. I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I had the generator out. I'm hooking stuff up, trying to get the internet going. Can't do nothing when you don't have internet. It's not like I can do anything. I got everything ready to go. But yeah, so that's really what we've been doing.
About 13 years ago, we had a massive hurricane come through my town. I'm in a little beach town. We had no power for 2 weeks. My kids were babies. So how did you guys fare out? You just got the power back? No big deal?
Yeah, no big deal, man. It's good.
Who and what can stop Schlegelville?
Yeah, man, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, like you got to be prepared. I mean, this is nothing. Plus it's good. I hate electronics. I hate all social media. I know everybody. We're on social
I
media
hate
right now. I can't
it.
stand any of it. But it's a necessary evil. But it can be something that can be done the right way to encourage people, to lift up people, to maximize other people. That's how I kind of view it. That's why I'm always positive about it when I'm
Yep.
on it. So little sidetrack this morning, but we're up and at 'em working.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I always say I can't wait till I don't need to utilize the internet to run my business. And it's been a while, but probably 2 years ago, I deleted all the social apps from my phone for a good month. And I did notice less traffic to the website, which was just like a lesson. Hey, people are living on their phones. That's where attention is. And as Gary Vaynerchuk says, this is the attention economy. Before social media, it was TV commercials and newspaper ads. But I bet you're really good with this, Schlegs. I like doing stuff like going out and engaging with people, which is before you hopped on, I told people you're going to be a speaker at the Underground Strength Conference. There's only been
For
one,
sure.
and I did that one 13 years ago. I remember it was the summer before the hurricane, and people are still talking about it. The Ultimate Warrior was actually a speaker.
That's amazing. That's
Oh, and
amazing.
blew the roof off the place. So, something I picked up from you, you don't have too many videos, or when we did the first podcast, but you do the podcast with your buddy Bobby, which is pretty much a football podcast, right?
Yeah, we talk a little bit about everything. We go over. It's primarily college football. We talked about Tim Walton today, and Tim Walton gave his thoughtful Thursday, and it was a lot about Christ and about Jesus, but how he talks to the guys. You guys got to remember too. I mean, I also coached Ohio State football strength conditioning for the first 6 months of this year. Why? Because my buddy Kenny Parker, who was the head strength coach at
Yep.
Rutgers with Chris Ash, he had back surgery. Guess what? I'll fill in no problem for my brother, and those guys. Needed a little bit of that, so we did that, right? And so we talk about all those things. I'm in a unique position because not only did I play in college at the Air Force Academy at Ohio State, I played in the NFL, I coached at Ohio State, I coached in the NFL. Not a lot of people can say that they've done those things while also, running multiple businesses, have 2 patents. Now I run a business called The Armory, where I'm the executive vice president of fitness, which in and of itself is an anomaly because we actually are the first to market that has incorporated medical fitness and recovery in one location. Other people say that they try to do that. They do not. Because again, it's a lifestyle. Like the fitness journey is a lifestyle, and it doesn't matter where you are in it. You just got to get on it. And the biggest thing that I've learned through the NFL, through Ohio State, the sports performance model, if you have it, they will use it. It's like candy at the cash register. It's available, right? And we talk about the best ability is availability. Well, guess what? You got to have those resources at their disposal to coincide with the lifestyle that we want them to have. And that's how you do it in sports. Like, do they start week 1 to week 17 in the NFL? The answer is yes, you've done your job, right? Same thing in college. Like, you got to have the Jimmys and Joes to run the X's and O's, but they got to be out there. But you still got to train hard, but you also got to educate on how to be an elite athlete. They don't know that. Just because you think they're pro or they're getting money from NIL doesn't mean they know. And a lot of people out there, you think you know, but you don't know because you're just looking at Twitter and Instagram. And all I see from Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and all this other bullshit stuff is everybody's looking at power. Guys, side nugget, strength is the foundation of all things, right? So if you don't have that foundation, I give two shits about your power. And especially if you're dealing with young athletes, those are even going into college. If you don't have a strength foundation, you will get hurt. And you're seeing that right now in the NFL when guys start to eliminate what got them there from a strength perspective. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't start to take some of those qualities and give a little bit more of that attention to other things, right? At some point, strong is strong enough. I'm a case in point at that, right? In my career, I didn't need to deadlift 700 pounds and squat 6. Probably 6 and 5 would have been appropriate, and work on being 235, better hip mobility, better shin angles, being able to run and play in space. I would utilize that better than just more weight on the bar. But guess what? Not everybody's even at that level. So you got to get there at some point too. So anyways, can't wait to be up there and discuss all these things with you. as well as business, because I've been very, very fortunate. Because of Ohio State, I went back and did my MBA, and then consequently started multiple. That's got me to where I am today.
Well, I love everything you said, and I've been saying it. I feel like strength has gotten demonized in our sports performance world, and I've noticed a pretty consistent decline. I train predominantly high school kids, but I've noticed around the popular, once the iPhone became popular, the frequency of training became less, and the normal strength levels of a high school athlete became less. Last year, I tracked injuries, and it was 95% from kids who didn't build body armor, didn't build strength. And I think you know my buddy Jeremy Hartman. He's from Ohio. Yeah, so
Yeah.
we spoke a couple of days ago, and he said we like kind of looked at, hey, what do our best athletes do? And he's like, man, they're strong AF. They have a high frequency. They're training frequently. They'll often train, twice a day, sport, skill, lift, or they lift at school, come back to the private strength coach. So I love that you spoke about strength, and what you mentioned also in NFL, like guys are, I've heard a lot of NFL strength coaches saying, man, like the focus on strength has gotten less because I think the athletes have gotten like a bit brainwashed from the social media stuff. Like I shouldn't squat, or I don't need to, lift heavy. And so I'm hearing it from strength coaches in the NFL.
Well, I think part of that is, like, let's not kid ourselves, guys. Like, the hardest, in my opinion, the funnest part of the workout are the strength part of the workout. Now, and there's also so many other things that go into that velocity-based training. I love VBT. VBT is a guardrail. It's not the end-all, be-all. I have Westside right there along in Columbus, Ohio, and I talk to Tom very frequently about the things that they do. And still, strength is the foundation, max effort. But there's a way of doing it in the high school space. Strength is the hardest thing to do. That's why people don't like to do it.
They say it's easy.
Right? I mean,
people are saying it's easy. They're like, it's easy to get people strong. I say it takes balls and guts to get strong.
Yeah, I mean, and also tissue density, right? Like, that's another thing. Like, I mean, you can't do that just by doing power stuff. Like, you need hypertrophy training. And again, there's a space for all this. I'm also not the type of guy that's going to say I'm going to take an entire block and do isometric tissue re-lengthening, which you should do post-season because you've been doing the same things for 12, 14, 16 weeks, doesn't matter. Yeah, guess what? I'm not going to spend an entire block. If people don't realize this in college football, you're putting 6 pounds of shit in a 3-pound bag because you also got to come after playing now a potentially 15, 16 game season into full contact spring football. So you got to get to work, right? And you just can't just say, oh, we're going to take an entire 3-4 weeks to go do this. No, you're going to sprinkle them in and get them where they need to be. And you're also going to make sure that their body is physically prepared to be able to handle the running load. How can you do that, right? So I know that when I was at Ohio State, the goal was by the time we walked into spring football week 1, we did 13, and I talk about the skill guys because they're the ones that you focus on the most. We did 13,000 yards of running over a 5-day period, micro dose, meaning we got all the high speed distance. That's over 90% threshold. You got the high speed distance over 75. You got the decelerations. You got all these different things that are built in your program over a 5-day period. And our guys knew. We're just like, hey, why am I running extra tempos on a Friday? We got to accumulate some volume because there's no way of replicating a practice. It's just not. Like, you can't do that. But the totality of practice you can replicate by microdosing over the entire week, and you got to run. Now, that's also including 4 days of weight training that were freaking hard and very, very competitive, right? And I always talk about, like, you got to train violent to be violent. Like, that's just a fact, too. That's a mentality and a mindset. But you take that totality, and guess what? First week of spring football, those guys did 11,000 yards. Was their tissue prepared? Yes. People that say, like, oh, we can just train and go do that have never played at high level stuff. I'm just going to say, I'll challenge anybody because I've been in the weeds of this shit for a long, long time. We were doing sports science at Ohio State before anybody was doing sports science. That's a fact. And that came from a relationship that I had with the Air Force Research Lab back in 2013 doing a study for pararescue on cooling shirts. And from that, we got float tanks, omega waves, tracking the central nervous system. We had Zephyr. Back then, I don't even know if Zephyr's a thing. I think they got bought out by Zebra. We were doing that in 2013, 2014. So, again, being in this game for the amount of time that I've been in it, uh, all those things are cool, but it still doesn't matter because the fundamentals are what win, and that's strength training in the weight room and making things very, very difficult for people because that's sports. It's going to be difficult. I know you train a lot of wrestlers. I was a state champion wrestler. I
That's
love
right.
it. Like guys need to feel
Texas.
that they need to be competitive in the weight room. And if you're not making it competitive in the weight room, if you think that no, we don't have to need to have juice, like we should create our own juice, like what are you doing? You know, like I grew up in Metroflex gym, and it was always juiced, right? Like I don't care if guys were taking juice. It doesn't
Right.
matter,
Yeah.
right? It's about the attitude and intensity of which you train. And you as a coach are an extrapolator of greatness. And you got to do whatever you got to do to make sure they get it because not all of them are just going to have it. You don't have it every day. Somebody needs to be the juice giver for you, right? But your environment should be a show that it is time to get bumpy when I step in this door. And that's just the standard. And that's the standard at Ohio State and why they're successful year in and year out.
The culture. What's interesting is, I know when you speak at the Underground Strength Con, you'll dig deeper on this, but so you filled in for KP for 6 months, but you got the company, the difference. Also, it seemed like from the outside looking in, you're managing, I guess, the coaches and the overall staff at the Armory. So you were
Right.
plus family man with kids, and I think you got like a house/farm in Ohio, plus live in Florida. So a lot of people get overwhelmed with, hey, I'm coaching at a high school and I'm going to start something on the side. And what I've picked up on is people, it's like they struggle doing more than one thing. So how did you do all of those things at once? And it's not like you're at the Ohio State. It wasn't like you were at, no offense to anybody, just a smaller university where we're a little bit more time and less pressure. So how did you do that all?
And I still, when I'm in Florida, I coach my son's baseball team 3 days a week while they're here, right? And I train my daughter, who's 16, who's an alpha female, and then I coach my 12-year-old's junior high team. So here's the thing that people got to understand whenever you do anything like this. When I took on my MBA while I was also working 90 hours a week and tackling fans that ran on the field and all that BS, like you can only be committed to a couple things. And that means I don't have any time. My time for myself is when I train. And you got to live with that. I don't go out. I don't play golf. Do I enjoy golf? Yeah. But like, I invest my time in other things. It will be, I need to take my wife on a date, or I need to pour in and fill up my oldest kid's cup or my daughter's cup or my youngest kid's cup. Like, how do I do that? And other things are going to slide off, like necessarily being a great friend all the time. I might not be that because I'm doing these other things. It doesn't mean I don't care. It doesn't mean I don't reach out. When I do, I'm very sincere and authentic about it. But you can't be all things to all people all the time. You got to make sure that your yes is yes and your no is no. Now, part of that too, when you build businesses, you have to build the systems in place. Businesses to me is like, what is your brand? What are the products and services that you have? More importantly, what are the systems that allow you to scale? So though I run the executive vice president of the Armory, everything that I do is how do I replicate it to scale it? So we do a thing, whether that's wellness living and how we basically are CRM for all of our members, or you have what's it called? Like we're doing grand rounds right now. Grand rounds is where every week, just like your podcast, we have people that talk on a variety of different topics. We had our founder talked about steroids. Like people don't know, it's open to our gym members, it's open to the public, it's open to our staff, so they can be educated to all of these topics. I talked about business, just holistic business, because too many times in a tribe business, like 9 to 100 people, everybody think that they need to know the answer to everything. I'm like, you don't need to know the answer to everything. You need to do your damn job. And your job is this. I will tell you exactly what you need to go, where you need to go, and what you need to do. And we'll be very clear and concise on that. However, I don't want you guys to think that we just throw stuff on the wall and hope that it sticks. Right? Being able to be a business in a startup or even a small 10 to 100 people business, you got to be agile, right? Like Pat had a great quote. A good plan executed violently today is better than a perfect plan executed next week. That's a fact. When you're in a startup, that's a fact. When it comes to a strength conditioning program, execute that shit violently. be able to be agile enough to pivot. And you'll do that when you start a business and you're waiting on occupancy and you find different things where water can flow into, and you had initial projection as to how you're going to do certain things in your business. You can't do that. So you have to pivot on a dime, still thinking holistically, but how can I utilize my resources, AKA cash flow, to then put out a great product that generates revenue? Right? So are you thinking about those things all the time? I learned all that, yes, in the business school, but honestly from being a strength conditioning coach. Like I can run 50 kids at a time, no problem. I run 31 kids at a time, all different, the same program, but actually all different programs, you know? And that's how I utilize sports science. Not that I got to do it with my kids' team, but what I did was I took my son, and he plays baseball. He wants to play college baseball. Good for him. Go get it. But I took him and a couple, like 5 of his buddies, and I tested them on all the Vault sports science stuff. And here's the snapshot. They all got deficiencies posterior chain. And that's every youth athlete that I have seen through the Armory.
Yep.
And most adults, posterior chain, underdeveloped. And here's the other thing, too, with that. There's 2 things of posterior chain work, guys. There's knee dominant and there's hip dominant posterior chain. And I'm going to say this. We like to do the shit that we're good at, right? Louis said weak things break. So when I did these things, I can barbell RDL 500 for 5, no problem. Why? I got strong glutes and a strong lower back. But that doesn't necessarily mean my hamstrings are strong. So I do a knee dominant posterior chain. Guess what? My hamstrings were showing 360 newtons, and my asymmetry is actually pretty decent. But I'm weak as hell because a linebacker, 75% in the NFL, should be above 500. That's kind of like the gold standard. So I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? Well, I can back off a little bit of the hip dominant posterior chain, incorporate some more knee dominant posterior chain, add in some more volume of knee dominant posterior chain, and then guess what? Boom, over a 2-month time frame, I went from 360 to 475. And now I can balance it back. Now, the other thing I saw from baseball is my son had an asymmetry on his right hamstring because he's a lefty pitcher. So he decelerates on his right hamstring. You would think that's absolutely correct, but then his buddy, who's a left-handed pitcher just like him, was 32% asymmetrical on his left hamstring being stronger. So his right was 32% weaker. Now, my daughter, same thing. She's strong as hell. Weak posterior chain, weak knee dominant posterior chain, asymmetrical. That's where the injuries occur. And so what do you do for a Nick? Well, here's the program, guys, that we're doing. Hey, Nick, anytime we do a knee dominant posterior chain, you're doing an entire extra set, whether it's an isometric hold or whether it's a Nordic curl or whether it's single leg banded. Like you're doing that all the time on your right leg because your left one is stronger. We got to get that up. That's how it works. They loaded great on their left, not on their right. So what do? Hey, when we're doing whether it's a push or a box step up or a skater squat or pistol squat, like you're going to do extra reps loading on your right side. Or you're going to do jumps, unilateral plyo jumps onto a box or forward, whatever, on your right side because you don't load it appropriately because you're above the 10% threshold. Yeah. Guys, it's that freaking simple to be able to execute what you get from the data into a program, because that's how I view sports science. Sports science is finance to business. Sports science just validates that the work is working. Finance just validates that the work is working.
I love that you just mentioned you guys are going to do extra work on this weaker side. And I think we got away from that through the years. We got so caught up, the strength and conditioning sports performance world, into optimal and feeling good. And my buddy's son plays D1 football. He's like, man, my son said to me last week, I got to stop worrying about when my body feels good and start attacking these workouts. He's like, exactly. You play football. It doesn't feel good. And I think it's the same with wrestling. But the style of training you endorse, Schlegs, in my opinion, builds the durability that allows you to thrive, to the end of the season. Let me ask you another question. When the Armory came about, were you brought in as a partner, or did you invest in it from a business standpoint, or did they start off saying, hey, we need you on board because of your brand and also your knowledge and like as a consultant? How did that kind of partnership happen?
Yeah, I have a little bit of something in there. I'm not going to go into my details
Sure.
of it, but I mean, this started through a relationship, talking to Dr. Sean about this vision, and I had just created that in the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I got a couple of people that joined us live. And Megan, she's an alpha female down there. She plays for the Columbus Fury. I had the pleasure of training them last year. Um, and Teddy's on there too. So also appreciate you guys checking it out. But it was really like, hey, you want to do business with great people that share the same mindset, but
Yep.
that are different than you and things, right? Like we don't need a business that's ran by all Schlegels. That just sounds like a
I
terrible
agree.
idea. You know, you
Complimentary.
you need it. You need to have people that are really good at what they do, that are completely different, to have checks and balances. Because Sean and I are really plant the flag and go light speed, but you also got to have their checks and balances with the financial side and then the medical side as to where everything is going, and always keeping the focus on what moves the needle for us. We have 1,800 members. So like
That's
we've grown
crazy.
double. We've doubled our membership. It is crazy, right? We've doubled our membership. I mean, what month is this? 9, so 10 months. Um, but it's because of what we're offering to people, and that's a lifestyle change along with all the amenities. But when you go and you decide to go do this with somebody, this was vetted out over multiple months, multiple conversations, to where it's like, yeah, we need to go do this, and then we just go, and then you're just solely focused on it, right? And that's really where it's the same thing in our training, right? Like to me, you have a staff, you sit down, every team is different, right? Like this year at Ohio State, you have a very veteran team led program. So you always have +2 reps in your program. Boom, the older guys, Trevion Henderson's, the Donnies of the world. Hey, it's a culture rep. They just take it on, man. Like guys are straining. It's on them. They're highly competitive. They're the ones that are leading it. We're just helping facilitate it. We know the guys that we work with individually and where they need to grow. And then we go do that, right? So very different than when it's going to be next year when all those guys leave. It's going to be like, what does this group need? And you're going to have guys that come back that have played a lot of ball, but then you're going to also have a lot of other guys that that need to develop and need to learn and to grow into that. That's where, as a strength coach, you got to create and manipulate the situations to extract that from them, put them in the situations for them to be the leader and set them up for success, and also have hard conversations with them. That's the beauty of coaching, but it's also the exact same thing in the business world. And if you don't have that type of candor with people and dialogue to be able to articulate your why and what you do, then do you really know your why and why it is that you're doing it? That's what I love about training high school kids. Like we have one kid, he's always asking me questions. I'm like, I love that you ask me questions. I'm like, but now I want you to go into why I'm so fanatical, because Megan knows this. You talk about mobility to stability, right? So I'm a thrower, overhead people, like your upper back, your infraspinatus, like those are your decelerators. We got to train them. However, you also have to manipulate the tissue and work on the stability to be able to retract down and back, right? So I have a better range of motion through my shoulder girdle. Easy. So how do I build those into the program? Well, don't skip this shit when we do, wall slides or whatever it is in our cup work and our banded alphabet and our retract scat push-ups or, on the wall stuff. Like that stuff is meaningful,
Yeah, it's not
right? So don't just get
exciting.
through it.
It's
Yeah.
not as
But this is why we
like
do it. Yeah. And that's the why. They're like, okay, makes sense. And that's what I've really found from this generation. Back when we were growing up, it was more of like when, what, and why. It was like, do it now. All right, go. Like, let's go. And then what am I doing? Like, okay. And then why am I doing it? That was always third. And we didn't even care. We just trusted the guy
we
or the
all
gal,
yeah.
right?
We were also kind of
So,
afraid. We were like afraid that we were disappoint the coach. One of the athletes I trained through high school said band pull aparts. I kept bands at all times so the athletes could do pull aparts, face pulls, sneaking in, shoulder health, and
all
because
day.
I feel like what we did wrong, what you do wrong in your teenage years, you could get away with it, but then it catches up to you mid-20s. I tell them, listen, I'm training you in such a way to make you durable and healthy so that when you do have kids, you're not saying to them, I can't throw the baseball, I can't throw the football, the softball, because I destroyed my shoulders. I got one more question for you, Schlegs,
Go ahead.
before I shut it down.
You got to go train a group.
Um, you know, so I'm thinking of two things with regards to your business. your difference, I know, gets kind of distributed through Sorinex, Rogue, and probably other companies. And then I'm thinking you're in the Armory, which has kind of all these different aspects. And so I feel like it seems like you're moving into a world where partnerships are better. Do you feel like that's maybe the future of business? It's kind of like you said, strength and conditioning. So my partnership at the high school is I have to be a great partner with the sport coaches, with their parents, with administration. I feel like you don't get anywhere without it. So where did you start where and when did you start doing that segue?
So
Because the difference, from what I recall,
yeah.
you were shipping it out from your farm in Ohio. I feel like it was just
Well, I
you.
mean, it started in my garage in December, like November, December of 2015. First sales went live December of 2015, and then like started the business 2016, right? So I learned in 18 I'm partnership only, right? Like, and now it grew above that, but like I still was selling them, but I got Rogue, I got Powerlift, I got Short, I got everybody that's in the business. Like anybody that sells equipment, you just get a wholesale price. You do it. I drop ship it. Don't even worry about it. I take care of everybody. You go promote it, right? And consequently, I'm in 125 Division I colleges and 30 NFL teams. Like I got the best of the best, but why did I do that? Because high school coaches go to colleges to try it out, right? So my thing was I'm going to get as much market penetration in the market that I'm best known. That's how I'm going to market it. I don't even spend any money on marketing. And so it's all word of mouth because I don't want to deal with it. If you don't want my product and you don't see the value of being violent with your hands, 5,000 reps a year per kid, then you're not going to get it. And I don't want you to have it because I'd rather you go buy more bars and bands. I'm just a tool, right? The difference is just a tool. Now, here's what I'd say. I like bigger sales. Why do I want to go after the one-offs, even in strength conditioning at the Armory, as opposed to going to teams? I like training teams. I like team environments. I like competitive excellence. I want them to encourage their teammates. Now, it doesn't mean I'm not going to do one-offs, but I'm going to focus my time, energy, and effort from our business, right, of how do I get a construction company to view their athletes as industrial athletes? How am I, because we're the only ones that can do it all. Like we can do medical, we can do fitness, and we can do recovery. Nobody else can do that, right? So I want to get the bigger partnerships. That's what drives revenue. Like I think too many times people start to look at, well, I got to go get 60 individual kids. That's 60 individual sales. Go get the high school. Now here's the deal with the high schools. What we've done individually is we bridge the gap. Jay Hooten is my director of sports performance. He was at Northwestern for a very long time, head strength coach there for football, did other sports as well when he got there. We bridge the gap. I'm not going to be a dick and say, oh, you got to come to us solely. No. Hey, what is your school doing? You might be working out 4 days a week. Okay, well, here's your weaknesses that we have from the vault. Here are the things that we can bridge the gap that you're not getting within your training. And we might do 1 day a week, and then the other day might be more recovery type day for yourself. That's it, because you're actually confusing activity with achievement, working way too much. The hardest sell is telling the parents you're doing so much skill that you're not able to enhance the skill by being foundationally stronger. We all know, like at some point, strong is strong enough, but sprinting is great neurological coordination. Plyometric work is great neurological coordination to allow you to do your skill better. So you need those qualities, but all you're doing is throwing 5 days a week. That sounds terrible, right? You're not doing the things that are necessary. So back to business, I always look at how can we scale? How can we scale the fastest? What are our systems in place to allow us to execute, more importantly, when I close that sale? And I'm always hunting, right, for big ones. And though I might not be able to get them right at this moment, I already know how I can. And when that does happen, I've already planted the seed. I already have the plan. Now I have the building. Now we can execute very, very fast. But you also have to have the people on the ship to be able to execute at a high level too. So
love it. Schlegs, you're the man. I can't wait to see you. We're going to be right on the board of New Jersey. We'll be in New York at Underground Strength Con. Where's the best way for people to connect with you and all your work? I'll link it up when I share this on my site. But for those listening, they can obviously follow you. You haven't really posted it for a bit on YouTube, but you got the podcast.
Yeah. We got the Bobby Carpenter Show. You can hit me up, the Anthony Schlegel. I think that's on I think that's on Instagram. I think on Twitter I'm Schlegel.
Yeah.
That's from a song from the Players Club soundtrack from the '90s. Anyways, that being said, I can't wait to be up there with you. It's going to be a great conference. I'm excited to learn, excited to talk, have some fellowship, and get bumpy. So you guys have a great weekend. Zach, thank you.
Schlegs, thank you, my bro. We'll talk to you soon, buddy.
All right, man. See you.
Thank you, brother.